Good evening. Welcome to the May 25th, 2023 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. We'll be running tonight's meeting via Zoom platform and ask the public who wish to speak to either raise your hand and get recognized by Charlotte or enter your question or comment into the chat box, including your name and address for the record. If you don't include your name or address, you will not be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the commission are Angela Giso, the conservation administrator, and town conservation agent Charlotte Patel. We have two commissioners out this evening. I will take a roll call vote of the other commissioners for the record. Tom Bell.
Tom Bell present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan present.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre present.
And Chris McFarland present. We have a quorum of 4 commissioners this evening. We'll be taking all votes via roll call with commissioners answering yay, nay, or abstain. We just want to begin the meeting by approving minutes from the April 27, 2023 meeting. Have commissioners had a chance to look at it? Does anyone have any comments?
I looked, no comments.
Okay, well, without any comments, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for April 27, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second,
Having a motion second, we'll take a quick roll call. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 4-0. We'll now move to the public hearings for this evening. Our first hearing this evening is new to the commission, so I'll read it into the public record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for notice of intent 23-14 to upgrade the on-site wastewater disposal system at 754 Chief Justice Cushing Highway by Edward Watley.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So is it custom for me to give a few statements before opening it up to you all?
If you wish.
Okay. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. In the fall, Dwyer's had Rosano Davis do an inspection of their septic system related to the permitting for the new butcher that they wants to open up in the store, replacing the old dry cleaner. And the system was not draining properly. And so the Board of Health issued letter, Pam wrote a letter to Dwyer's, basically kind of giving sort of the rules of the road in terms of preparing a plan and then upgrading the system within 2 years of that date, which was in September of last year. And so we've gone through a process of inspections, pumping down to see the condition of tanks, TVing doing CCTV of the laterals to find that they were actually blocked fairly close to the distribution box, and then doing Title V test pits with Phil Spath of the Board of Health, and then preparing plans through a number of iterations to get to a point where we could find a way to meet Title V rules. And so we're at the point where, and we also got survey, and then we got a wetlands assessment. And so we're at the point where we've gotten the Board of Health approval, and then we're seeking your approval to place the system closer than your setback limits.
Okay. Charlotte, do you have a plan to share with us?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Ed, would you like to share your screen and walk us through the plan, or would you like me to pull it up and?
Yeah,
you.
I can do it. And that way I can
Okay.
zoom in and et cetera.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I've got this zoomed into the existing conditions and the erosion controls. Is that showing up well enough for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the building takes up probably half of the lot. And we ended up testing within several test pits within the existing disposal field. We were actually finding the material to be nearly identical to Title V sand, but it is technically fill. So all that material would have to be removed. But then we also tested 2 areas in the front of the building. So between 3A and the building. And we did find issues that we couldn't resolve in each of those areas. And then in this area here, from a space standpoint, there was a potential to put something here, but unfortunately we got standing water in a dry well here that would have made it, there'd be no way we could get the groundwater separation anywhere within this system. So that sort of knocked that off the block. And so, you know, we did run into lousy soils here, refusal at low and high groundwater over in this spot. And you know, so that's kind of why we were sort of led down the road of locating the system basically in the same location that it's at now. And I'll just skip to the proposed. So in the proposed system, we're planning on replacing all the tanks. And we're going to be adding a grease trap because there is a kitchen element in the butcher shop. Not much, but enough that Pam asked us to go ahead and supply a grease trap. And then we're using a Presby system, which is just a method of enhancing the treatment. So that's basically it in a nutshell. As far as erosion controls, we have, we're going to have the potential for tracking on and off the site. So we're going to have stabilized entrances. And then we'll have silt fence with a biodegradable compost, mulch sock along the edge. And so, I mean, that's it kind of in a nutshell. I'm sure you'll have questions. I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Pam, did you want to say anything before we ask questions of the applicant?
Hear me? Okay, hang on a second. I just wanted to say that sorry about that. Unfortunately, there really is no other place on the site to put a system. And, you know, there's a failed system, so this will be protective of public health and the environment in the future. It's really the best they can do. There was a lot of variance requests, but this was really ultimately the best thing that they can do. I mean, in an ideal world, I think it'd be great if we had regional sewer. And if there's anything you guys can do to support that in the future going down 3A, that would be great, but it's not coming anytime soon.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
What's the usage of the building gonna be besides it's gonna be a butcher?
Yeah, so there's a pool company that takes up probably a third of the building. Sort of just outlining it with my hand here. The back part of the building is just a workout gym. And then this corner of the building will still have Mulaney's seafood. And then this central section here is going to be the butcher shop.
Mhm.
The butcher shop is just gonna be like a walk-in type setup.
Yeah, it'll be really similar to Mulaney's. At least that's the kind of feel I get from looking at the plans. Small, custom type of, butchering. I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, fairly small. I think it sort of pairs well with Mulaney's and I think they're hoping that it's a success.
I mean, obviously the parking is probably per code requirement, but is the parking immediately adjacent to the wetland? Is that utilized much?
Every square inch of this is utilized. I would say the parking that's least utilized is in front of the building. It just sort of, it's really quick turnover.
Yeah.
Folks going in to get fish or,
Yeah.
make a purchase at the pool company. But the back area is actually the most used because that's the folks coming in to work out, get there very early and stake out and get themselves a spot.
Carla, do you have any comments or concerns?
No, I did go out with Ms. Dwyer and take photos of the site if anyone wishes to see them. But, just by looking at the plans and looking at the variances that Board of Health already granted, it is a tough site. So this based on the test pits, this location seemed, feasible, at least to the best of what we can do here on the site. I will note the wetland and the intermittent stream are on the other, it's on the abutting property. So their property pretty much goes right up to the edge of the pavement and some vegetative, buffer. And then the wetland and the intermittent stream are on the other property behind it.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Any
No.
questions? Any questions from the public? Tom, you muted.
I know, I'm just looking at this. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take a close look at it, but I guess I am concerned about, again, I'd like to sort of hear more about the proposed site from the perspective of the test pits and what the groundwater table looks like here. I mean, we're right where it looks like, half of this infiltration chamber, if I'm reading this right, is within the 50-foot buffer. And that's of concern, obviously. And so if you could tell us a little bit more about what you saw in test pit 6, and is that the only one in your infiltration zone? Test pit 6?
Yeah, so we're sort of flanked by 6,
Oh,
1,
I see. Okay, there's another
and
one.
2.
Okay.
And so the groundwater in probably really the best thing is to go to the
Yeah.
there's just a profile we could take a look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is essentially we're doing pretty well on groundwater. I mean, we didn't have a lot to spare. Really
bet.
only 4 inches. We need 4 foot separation. But, you know, so we do have the separation to groundwater, in both locations. So it's, this part of the building, or part of the profile is up against the north wall, sorry, the south wall of the building. And so the groundwater is a bit higher there, and then it drops, as we move south. So we do have good depth. We do have to we have some, just as far as constructing the system, it has to be fairly deep in that it needs to support traffic. And so we do lose 15 inches of asphalt and gravel base. So we did have to lower the system a bit, but in the end, we have a little over 5 feet of groundwater separation on the lower end, and then 4 foot 4 inches on the upper end. So it's that's meaning
My
does
concern
that-
arises, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but really my concern is that wetland, its extent would represent the high stand of groundwater in the neighborhood, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be a wetland. And the contours here that I'm looking at would seem to indicate that it's higher than you've estimated in your test pits.
so let's take a look. We've got a contour of about 60 and then 59 in here.
And let me just say, I'm always suspicious when I see that wetlands delineations cross contours. Of course, that's not entirely realistic from a groundwater perspective.
Yeah, and it's really it's a flag to flag line.
Yeah.
And
no,
so
I
you know
realize
what I
that.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know all the sort of compromises and hazards that are involved in the using plants and very shallow estimations of whether you've got a hydric soil or not. But the fact is that water does tend to be parallel to the surface of the earth, and at least of the gravity field, let's say, and if it's at a specific elevation in one place, it's got to be pretty much the same within the perimeter of that wetland delineation. We see this all the time, of course. So, but in any case, in this specific case, it does not. I'm sort of uncomfortable with your separation here. So, do you have any pictures of your test pits, or you know, I didn't get a chance to read what who the evaluator was or what they found. So maybe you.
Yeah,
Did you do the evaluation of the pits?
Yeah, I did the evaluation. Phil Spath was on site with me. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
With who?
Phil Spath. He's
No.
yeah, he's the Board of Health. He's hired by the Board of Health to oversee the test pits and basically you know, shadow that with the soil evaluator, you know, from the applicant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull up photos if that's.
I mean,
if
you
that's
show a
helpful.
gradient. You show a gradient here on your cross section. You want to go back to well, it's still there. You show a gradient in the water table here.
Yep.
And, over a distance of what is it from left to right here?
Yeah, it's about
What's the distance?
40.
From,
yeah, it's
you've got a couple of symbols for groundwater.
yeah, 44 feet from
Yeah,
end to end.
okay.
And so this elevation represents the groundwater elevation that we found in test pit 6, and then this one represents the elevation test pit 1.
So
And then
what's the difference in elevation between the groundwater at one end versus the other here?
it's
Yeah, if you could zoom
yeah,
in.
I'm just estimating. It looks like it's about a
Well,
foot.
you've got numbers there, don't you?
Yeah. So we've got so there's a bit of a slope in the grade, but we've got about 4'4" separation from bottom of the field to about
Plus
5
Is that 2.6?
5'5". So it's about a foot difference.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should be concerned about the separation here. I don't think you have as much separation. Either you have too little on the left side or too much on the right. That's a fairly substantial gradient over 40 feet. Did you say this is length of this is 40 feet?
Yeah, I mean, it's so
That's like having,
happens-
that's like having a coffee cup on a table where the coffee's higher on one side of the cup than it is on the other, if you will.
yeah, I mean, it's basically, it's just where we found the groundwater. So it wasn't, we're not making, I'm not trying to make a represent that this is a perfect gradient. It's just, this is where we found the groundwater in this test pit, and this is where we found it in this one down here. So 6 versus I think it's 2.
Yeah.
This elevation down here, at 6, we found the groundwater elevation at about 58.7, which, that jives pretty closely with what we're seeing in here.
Yeah, and that's what we'd expect here. And,
Yeah.
And moreover, it would probably be 58.7 across your entire site here.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's it is paved, so you don't really have a lot, happening in here. There's nothing really going into the ground.
But
But
everything,
we just
everything surrounding it is feeding into that groundwater. I mean, the water table is essentially over an area like this is flat as a table. That's the word water table.
Yeah, I mean, so we put these on here the way we found them in the test pits. We didn't
Right,
make
and-
any kind of, we weren't trying to oversell one test pit versus the other. This is just
Sure.
what we found in the field.
So I mean, really, that's all pretty technical, but my concern is we're in the 50-foot buffer. We're pretty close to a wetland. You're infiltrating stuff from a butcher and all the toilets in the building and all this. And it's awfully close to a wetland. Is it? So do you show the existing infiltration area on this?
Yeah, so we did go out, we had Morse do a survey,
Mhm.
and then the second time, I think the second day of test pits, we had Rosano Davis do TV down these 5 laterals. And
So
so,
those are the laterals. So
yeah, so we put a
you're
question
double the
mark
length
here
of the
because,
laterals, is that correct?
yeah, these were blocked. And so rather than try to guess at a length, we really just, we assume that they're going out a ways, but we, how far we really don't know. But that's kind of the direction they were going. And then traditionally, this is where the system, there were no plans of the system. So we kind of had to
So
make
it might be more accurate to say that you're doubling the length of the unblocked laterals. Is that accurate? It looks like you've got a question mark at the end of each of the laterals, and they fall short of the 50-foot buffer. That's what I see here. If I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it might be more accurate to have drawn it in with a question mark in the middle. Because I don't think the field would have operated with a system this size. So maybe it would have been more accurate to draw the system sort of, with the question mark in the middle of the line. We just didn't want to portray that these are exact surveyed laterals, because that was part of the problem here, is not knowing where things were.
Sure. Is there room to put your drain field on the, I guess it'd be the north side here? Stay out of the 50-foot buffer with your laterals. Can you do that?
So there isn't quite enough room. The issue was that groundwater was sitting at 61.1 in this dry well.
Mhm.
And so the water is coming from, there's a catch basin here, and then it's connected, it's connected up to Shaw's. And so it's pretty much always flowing. So with that sitting, it's a dry well, so they're dry well blocks. But with that sitting at 61.1, that's 2.5 feet higher than what we would need to be able to get the 4-foot separation. So there was just it didn't even give us a starting point. So we would have to have groundwater down at about 59 at the 67 contour and 58 here. So we just weren't even at a point where we could begin to look at it.
So when you put in your test pits, I'm assuming you estimated the high water mark of your groundwater based on modeled soil. Is that correct?
Yeah, models or actual weeping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say you kept those trenches open for 2 or 3 days. You'd probably have a more accurate estimate of what your true groundwater is.
I mean, all the material that we found was essentially sand until you get to a little tighter material, which is the material that we're actually perking, which is the material that is it's more of a loamy sand. But all of material above the groundwater was a sand. And so we wouldn't really expect much of a change to happen over days.
Well, you got 61.1 on one side of the property, and what did you say the elevation was? 57. That's quite a gradient. So something doesn't make a lot of sense to me here in terms of your groundwater. You would seem to have a large gradient between that north parking area and this south one, a fairly substantial gradient, a couple of feet. And we're only talking about a distance of 100 or 200 feet, right?
Yeah, less than just a little over 100 feet.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Either you've overestimated on the north side or you've underestimated on the south side for that elevation, it seems.
Well, on the north side, so that's just,
You have standing water in an
yeah, you just
existing hole.
open the,
So
the
what
the
I'm
cover,
suggesting
and
is
it's right there.
if you had an open hole there for a few days or a week, you might find that it's also at 61.1.
I don't know if the two are really that well connected, because this you've got the building and the footing blocking off this side, and then you've got a pretty clear gradient over here,
Mhm.
as well as infiltrating capacity within the dry well. So we didn't, I guess theoretically, I guess could have that, but we didn't, you know.
I think if we put a bunch of piezometers in here, we'd find out that given enough time, we would find out that the elevation of the groundwater is consistent across the whole lot.
You know, I don't know what to say. I guess you could do that and see what happens.
I'm
but-
not suggesting you do it. I'm just saying that in fact, I'm skeptical that there's that big a gradient in the water table across 100 feet. You're talking about 2 feet of 2 feet of difference between over 100 feet. That seems unlikely to me. Here's what I'm getting at. The farther this drain field is from the wetland, the better from our perspective. I'll also say that we do not regulate groundwater. We regulate surface water, but we do have to be concerned about the separation between your infiltration chamber and the water table. So we're sort of in this funny position based on our bylaws and regulations, where we do have to be concerned about groundwater, but in a very limited way.
So, I mean, DEP builds in the 4-foot separation.
Yeah, I
And-
know.
And that's what we had to, live by. We were, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. It's the only place we
Right.
could get the
And
separation.
that means at least the burden of proof is on you, is to prove that you do have 4 feet of separation. And what I'm telling you is I'm somewhat skeptical of that. If you've got 61.1, 100 feet away from 59, it's not, it seems very unlikely that you've measured the high stand of the groundwater in your test pits. That's where I'm coming from. Pam, yeah,
Just add something, so I'm having trouble with audio. You're right, Title V is really more responsible for protecting groundwater, and you are supposed to have a 4 feet of separation, but it's recognized that you can't always meet that. So you are allowed to ask for a variance. And if you use a system like this Presby system, which is considered an innovative alternative system, it does actually give you credit, and you can have a more shallow system. And that's what they're going for in this case. Believe me, if this was no new construction, I mean, this would never fly with all these variance requests. There's no doubt about it. But the fact is that there's 3 existing businesses here. They have the gym, Mulaney Seafood, and South Shore Pool Supply. And they're existing right now with a failed septic system that was built like pre-1960. We don't even have a plan for this thing. It's so old.
Right.
So whatever this is, with this new innovative alternative system, it's going to be a huge improvement over what exists now. And again, there really isn't a better place to put this thing.
yeah, those are really good points. I agree. And it's not like we're going to put everybody out of business here because the groundwater table is high. I'm trying to get to, is there an alternative that's a little bit better than what the engineers are proposing to us? And if they are putting, so the Kresge system, is that a denitrifying system, Pam?
You're muted, Pam.
No, it's not denitrifying.
Okay,
It does have a feature that that the other alternate systems of this type don't have, and that's it has a membrane on the outside that is it's able to easily form a biomat, and then it has a pretty elaborate form of what they call scuppers that are not allow the effluent to build up in the pipe before they, before it exfiltrates, as opposed to just dropping like an infiltrator chamber that just dumps onto the floor of the chamber. But this one has, it definitely is it's a really good system in terms of its ability to treat.
So we're looking at an improved, technologically improved system to what's there. You have obviously a problematic existing drain field. And it doesn't sound like you're going to gain much by trying to move farther away from the wetland. And well, maybe you will. I mean, I suspect that if you're looking at standing water in that dry well at 61.1, the water table is a 61.1 over the entire site. And if we're going to give a variance here, because you can't quite clear 4 feet, maybe we should be looking at how to get just as far away from the wetland as possible. And certainly get out of the 50-foot buffer if we can. I mean, we're going to give a variance here one way or another. We are. We're not going to say nobody can do anything here and tear the building down and, put everybody out. But there may be an alternative that at least gets us farther away from the wetland than encroaching on it by it looks like a good 40 feet into the buffer and being within what does it look like 8 or 10 feet of the resource itself. So I would like to see at least some investigation. You don't have any test pits over there on that north parking lot. And I think I'd like to see that as an alternative, at least consider it. Show some evidence of why it might be okay or why it can't possibly work. We live in a town full of wetlands and we have to be always considering what the alternatives are to reduce the impact on those wetlands. And it just seems like you guys tested the front and I suppose you're hitting ledge there. What are the problems there?
In 5, we hit ledge.
Yeah.
In 4, we hit groundwater, too shallow. And then in 3, we had a fairly good layer, and then we got down to muck, like a clay layer. It was natural. It was just very
So
solid.
what was the elevation of groundwater in test pit 4?
Let's see, test pit 4. Well, test pit 4, actually, we hit refusal at 36 inches.
Oh, okay.
And then test pit 3 was fairly deep, but we just got into, well, it wouldn't have really made any difference because once we went to test pit 4, it pretty much killed that whole area.
Yeah, right. You don't have.
And then test pit 5 was the one that we got groundwater at 41 inches. So that pretty much shot that whole area.
Which would be an elevation of 61.1, pretty close, huh?
Well, there's, no, that would actually be about 63 and a half, but there's,
Okay.
I mean, you've got a building that I had heard from one of the sons that they had to actually blast to get it in. So
Yeah.
there's other stuff going on down here that is kind of toying with the groundwater
Yeah.
level. We're coming off a hill. There's another Title V system over here. And so we might find higher groundwater here because of what's happening here rather than here.
Well, looking at the contours, I mean, you are sitting on a high. The building is sitting on a high, it looks like. A slight elevation. And then as you move to the northwest, you drop down closer to the elevation of the wetland. within about 2 feet of it, actually. So there may be a groundwater mound out there because of other infiltration chambers. But I'd still like to see at least some, if it's only one test pit in the middle of that big parking lot, but still outside of the 50. And we're so close here. I would say leave it open for 5 days and then measure what the groundwater actually is. Modeling is a very imperfect way of determining the high standard groundwater. Very imperfect. Some soil models and some doesn't. If it doesn't have much iron in it, it's not going to model.
So Tom, you're suggesting further investigation
Yeah,
in this area?
yeah. Let's if we can actually determine that area that you've just drawn, Chris, is less suitable than the one that's being proposed, then we can move forward. But until we've condemned that area, until the engineers have condemned that area for one reason or another, then, you know, I mean, I'm in favor of, yeah, we're going to give a variance here one way or another. But let's at least give it for the area with the least impact. And I think where X marks the spot, Chris, that you just drew, that's probably fine for a first test pit. And it turns out, if it turns out that test pit is favorable, they'll have to put a few more in. But I think as a starting point, right in the middle of that parking lot's probably not a bad place to do it. And again, I don't have much faith in the modeling method here, particularly so close to a wetland. I'd like to see it have time to actually rise to the groundwater they hit, actually rise to the level of the true groundwater table. On a hillside, this wouldn't be an issue, but it's pretty flat out here. And there's a wetland nearby, and I'm just thinking that I'd like to see an alternative investigation and rule out one or the other. Looks like there's enough room to put one in.
Ed, would it be possible to assuming that there may be something uncovered as far as the water table is concerned, is it possible to locate it in that area?
It's almost big enough.
Right.
But
besides for the field itself, I mean, is all the plumbing currently running downhill the other direction, and they're gonna have to replumb the entire building? Is it?
Yeah.
No, it's sorry about that.
That's all right. I can.
We've got a dosing pump in the final chamber to pump clarified effluent to a distribution box.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the issues that I see, you know, we do have a pipe, we have a setback from the drain that we have to deal with. I'm sure we can get setbacks from the building and the property line. Pam, I'm not sure where the system is located on this lot. But by the time you add all those, we're a little tight to put that system. I've tried to place it in there, and I haven't quite been able to.
Does it need to be a single system, as in like field for infiltration? Could you shrink this one down and out of the 50 and maybe have a separate piece of it up in the northern area or something like that?
Yeah, that's something you could do. Yep.
We're just, I mean, I think I'm with Tom just in terms of the wetlands and making his as thorough of an investigation as we can here, and looking in that northern section, and making any considerations you can in terms of at least getting out of the 50.
Okay.
You know, if, again, if it's at 61.1, that was the elevation of the dry well, right? You've got a
Yeah.
you've got a contour here that crosses at 66. So you've got 5 feet minus 2, so you got 3 feet. How much do you need? How much do you really need above the water table here?
We need 4 plus 2 plus 15 inches. So we need about 7'3".
You need 7 feet, and
Yeah,
you've got 5 here.
Yeah, that's why I thought we don't really have much of a chance here.
Well, you may not have an accurate measurement of your high stand of the water table on this southern parking lot.
Well, we did.
I'm skeptical that you do without having an open pit, say TP6 open for 4 or 5 days. You really don't know. You just got some modeling, and it's not. This is not a very good method. I know it's in the book.
It wasn't through modeling. It was through
Weeping and stuff.
water in the pit. Yeah. And
give it enough time, and the pit probably would have filled up. How long was it open?
Not very long. It was sand, so I don't think it was
not very long. 2 hours or 2 days or a week.
Oh, we have to fill them in, pretty quickly. We're not we couldn't perk this because of the water.
Would you put an hour of value on that? You're talking
not even, maybe an hour. Yeah, maybe an hour.
Certainly not. In a low permeability system, there's no way you're going to reach equilibrium in an hour.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was the water was weeping in permeable materials.
And so give it overnight or give it 2 days or 3 days, you're going to reach equilibrium. And an hour is not going to do that. So just because it's weeping doesn't mean that that's necessarily how high the water stand is. I mean, it's weeping because there's a gradient. So I want to see an alternative.
Okay, we'll get the test pit in.
Okay.
And see what happens.
And I would suggest that if you can't keep it open that long, stab some perforated 4-inch PVC pipe in it and throw a little gravel around it and wait a few days so we get an accurate measurement. We are close enough to the wetland here and the buffers so that we need to find the best solution here. We're not going to find a good solution, but we can find the best one, I think, with a bit more work here.
Ed, our next hearing is June the 8th, and the one after that's June the 22nd. I'd like to continue to one of those hearings. How much time do you need?
I'll have to schedule this with Pam and the excavator. So I don't know if we'll be able to make June 8th, but yeah, I'll try.
Well, let's agree to continue to June the 8th, and if there's a problem, you just let Charlotte know and she'll push it to the 22nd.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You guys.
Our next hearing this evening is also new to us at 164 North Main Street. I'm going to read it into the public record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw, Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on the Zoom platform for a stormwater permit 23-09 from Hillary Moan to construct an attached garage, raised deck and stairs and other hardscaping at 164 North Main Street.
good evening. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
yes.
Hi. So I believe we also have the builder here, Brian Greenberg. If you could promote him,
Yes, thank you.
thank you. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. This is a proposed addition to the single-family home at 164 North Main Street.
Can I ask you to state your name for the record, please?
Oh yeah, my name is Xander Orm, Merrill Corporation.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. And I have to share my screen. Share screen. All right. Can we see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a proposed addition and various hardscaping and landscaping at 164 North Main Street. This addition consists of a new attached garage and extended mudroom. The attached garage will have a basement and second floor, as well as a new extended driveway, which will largely be in the existing footprint of the existing garage, which will be removed. They're also proposing a raised deck in the back of the garage, which will have deck stairs leading down to the yard and some stone steps. They're also proposing some stone walkways in the front, as well as a new staircase for the existing deck, which also leads to a stone walkway. And there'll also be a new planting bed area, which will replace an existing planting bed area that's already in this same spot. And yeah, so this lot is clipped slightly by Zone 2 protection area, but we're not proposing any additional pavement in this area, and construction will be avoided in this area altogether. We have silt sock wrapping around where we've delineated it here. And so the grading on the lot will remain pretty similar to what's existing. This slope, it slopes down here currently, and that's about what it's going to do in the proposed lot, and it slopes down to this new low area here. The back area will be flattened out a bit, and there's also retaining walls, which are proposed by Sean Papich landscape plan, which we have the landscape plan, which we can take a look at if so desired. But everything will slope down to this low point, which is where we have our stormwater system, which will collect runoff from this new driveway area. The shaded area of driveway will be graded towards this trench, this gravel trench, which will then be sent to the infiltration system. And we're also collecting runoff from approximately half of the proposed garage. And this will ensure that we reduce or match flows and volumes for all design storm events. And we did do a test pit in the location of the stormwater system, and we found very good soils and nice gravel sand. So we expect a good infiltration rate. And I believe that is it from me. If there's any questions.
Could you zoom in somewhat near the infiltration area? Not too far. I just
Sure.
want to.
Okay, is that good?
And what is the square immediately above that?
Oh,
That-
that's that's a sports court
That's a
that they
sports
have
field.
currently.
It's like a basketball court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No change proposed to that.
Nope.
Do you know when that went in? That's sports.
The sports court, not personally, maybe the homeowners could answer to that. They're here.
Believe it was previous to them owning the house, but if Kerr or Hillary is on, maybe they can.
Yeah, it was here when we bought the house in 2019. It was already installed.
Oh, yeah, okay, great. So it looks like there's some trees there. Are they gonna stay in place, basically?
These trees by the system, yeah, I believe the homeowners would like to keep those ones.
Great.
I think we discussed that.
Although you have a lot of grading going on there, so.
There is a good amount of grading here, but I mean, if I zoom in here, you can kind of see it. It's about the same slope as before. We're not increasing the steepness at all.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not gonna be able to change the grades, the alignment of the grades without impacting the vegetation. Nor can you dig your infiltration system without impacting.
Hi, Chris. This
Yes.
is Sean Papich. This is Sean.
Oh, sure.
John Papich Landscape Architecture, 222 North Street. There is going to be grading right in that area, and those particular trees are intended to be removed that are right near the infiltration trench. There's already a kind of a very large low depression in that area, so it's actually serving perfectly for where that infiltrator is right now. But that, as you can see, right in that little area with proposed grading, there will need to be some removal of those couple of pines that are in that location. Evergreens.
And what are the plants designated as twins and triple?
I'll have to take a look at that more closely. We have a birch in that location. What we are doing, yeah, any of those in that grade lines, those would be taken out. On our landscape plan, we're proposing to plant along the property line. And I know Xander said he had that he could queue up and show you if you want to see that. There's quite a bit of slope coming off the house right now, which is why you see that low retaining wall off to that edge. Essentially, it's a walkout garage, correct? So you can see this contour lines inside where the building is right now, and that sets up to be essentially a pretty good resolution for a walkout condition out of that garage, out of the basement of the garage.
Mhm.
And again, if you want to take a look at the landscape plan, if it's of interest, we do have plantings along the property line adjacent to the trench, or excuse me, the infiltrator trenches.
Yeah, the lower level slab is essentially at existing grade. So there'll be very, very little excavation. Essentially the only excavation for the lower level slab will be for the frost footing. But otherwise you're essentially walking out of the lower level to the existing grade level, give or take like 6 inches.
Any additional questions? And Charlotte, you reviewed the pre and post conditions,
Yes,
and they meet the requirements.
yes.
No other comments, questions? How big are those pine trees?
Hmm.
They're
Look at
not
that
very
more closely.
big. There's nothing more than 12 inches being removed on site, so I can tell you
No,
they're less than
definitely
that.
Yeah, I don't think they're anywhere near that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
We're proposing evergreens along the property line as well as some newer river birch to replace the one we're removing.
Anyone? No? Well, if there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to issue a stormwater permit 23-09 and 164 North Main Street. Do I have a second?
Berrigan, second.
Having a motion and second to issue stormwater permit 2309. Take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McDare, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 400. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, our next hearing this evening is also new to the commission. I'll read it into the public record in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws. Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 25, 2023 at 6:30 PM via remote participation on the Zoom platform for notice of intent 23-15 for the town of Cohasset, DPWs and engineering to present Government Island Wharf improvements at 15-19 Lighthouse Lane.
So the other folks just pulled up their plans. I have history and alternatives in a presentation. If you want me to just start like that.
Sure, could you start with your name and your affiliation?
Yeah, I am representing the town of Cohasset. My name is Jimmy Hill. I work for Foth Infrastructure and Environment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jimmy, you can share your screen if you like, if you want to pull up the site plan or any other documents you want to share.
Sure. I'll just go through a presentation. I'll pull up my site
Sure.
plan.
Okay, thank you.
Here. Everybody can see the screen. My pointer. I'm gonna minimize this. All right. On the behalf of the town of Cohasset, I'm presenting the Government Island Wharf Improvements Project. Like I said, my name is Jimmy Hill with Foth Infrastructure and Environment. DP file number is SE013-1408. This project has received the Secretary's certificate on the ENF number 16662. The wharf property is located at 15-19 Lighthouse Lane in Cohasset Harbor. This is an aerial image for the locus. Some background on the wharf. It was constructed in 1856 by the Army Corps. It was sold to the town in 1947. The town has maintained the structure since. The original wharf has featured a timber pier, lifts, and building facilities. The wharf in today's condition is comprised of the original stone wharf, 2 fixed gangways that anchor the float system. Currently, there's only 1 berthing space along the wharf itself at high tide. The wharf is also subject to inundation during events that combine a high tide and northeastern driven storms. These events render the facility sometimes unusable. During low tides, rock obstructions in the wharf vicinity hinder vessel access. Primary use of the wharf is commercial fishing, but also supports its recreational users. Some images of the wharf in today's condition. See the 2 gangways that are fixed here, the small float system. Another view from the float system here as we look south at the west side of the wharf and the subject property, and this view from the parking area. So the first alternative that we went through was the no build. No build scenario does not alleviate the flooding that occurred, nor does it alleviate the potential for damage and resulting debris that could be caused by the flooding. This alternative does not support Massachusetts climate resilience and sea level rise adaptation efforts. Based on the above conditions, the no build was not considered viable. Second alternative we came up with was that we considered to construct a timber pier extension adjacent to the existing wharf along the eastern side. Similar environmental impacts as the no build alternative result from continued flooding during coastal storm events and high tides. Under this alternative, the wharf would remain the existing elevation and grades, which does not address the climate resilience or sea level rise adaptation needs. So the final proposed alternative here that we submitted with the notice of intent is designed with current and future uses in mind and minimizes the impacts of surrounding environment. In this alternative, the wharf will be raised about 3 feet by constructing a concrete retaining wall set on top of the current wharf and filled the structure of fill and repaved to an elevation of 16 feet mean low water. The timber pier extension supported by steel pipe piles would be installed to the north and west of the wharf with deck elevations to match the 16-foot mean low water wharf. New floats, a larger ADA accessible gangway, conveyor system, and 2 quarter-ton jib cranes would be installed to improve facility use and access. This alternative also addresses the climate change and sea level rise concerns using the Massachusetts Coast flood risk model for 2050 planning horizon. I'll actually also mention this design allows for a future wharf course to be added to extend the service life possibly beyond 2070. So this is an overview of the proposed work overlaid on an aerial. The elevation improvements to the site tie into the 16-foot mean low water contour south of the wharf, further towards the harbor. The improvements then do not extend out past the current limit of the floats, nor does it introduce additional impervious area to the property. The harbor master had noted several rock obstructions limit access during lower tides. As part of the project, the rocks are located using multi-beam sonar equipment. Total of 186 square feet of rock amounting to 21 cubic yards total would be relocated to a nearby area west of the wharf to provide better access to boaters and give the floats 2.5 feet of clearance at low tide. The permits that we would require for this project to be local order of conditions by the commission, Mass DEP Chapter 91's waterways license, a Army Corps general permit, and CZM federal consistency. I'm going to pop open the plans. Let's see here. There we are. So this is the proposed repaving, regrading, and raising area of the wharf to tie into the existing 16-foot contour back here. We propose a silt curtain for turbidity be installed around the site during construction as well. And these are the timber piers, gangway, and pile system. The rock relocation to the west, we decided that this is a space that would be, void of any boat traffic over here, as it's shallow and similar depths to some of the rocks that would be relocated. These are those relocations. Some of them are directly under the float. And I think with that, I will turn it back to the panel. If I can figure out how to use this. Okay.
With respect to the rocks, how do you know they're rocks and not attached to the planet, shall we say?
Sure, yes. The multi-beam data showed be pretty you can kind of see right here is might take a little bit more investigation, but the rest are kind of just pocket rocks. The photos, site photos, this one in particular kind of shows you what is going on out there in terms of those rocks. A lot of it's just kind of scattered.
Yeah, I'm sure you're aware that the rock on the, I guess it'd be the north side of that, right? Or the east side of the structure is quite large and it's clearly bedrock.
Correct. Yep.
So
You're aware.
So how you going to deal with that if, for example, the one at Station 8 S03 is in fact a bedrock outcrop?
This one right here that I'm highlighting?
Yeah, that one.
I think we may need further investigation, and it could be removed with a excavator crane, potentially excavator or crane potentially.
Well, you're not gonna lift, if it's an outcrop, you're not gonna lift it out. You're gonna have to chip it or blast it or something to reduce its size or its elevation.
Correct. So we proposed maybe a hydraulic ram, then if in the case of harder rock like that, bigger pieces that can't be picked up, where we could break it into smaller chunks. I don't see the benefit of blasting out here. We didn't really talk about that too much. That's a tough one.
So if you raise it 3 feet, the gradient of those walkways is going to be, it's going to change a lot.
Correct, and we looked into the slope of the gangways at maximum low tide. And so that's actually why we increased the length of the gangway to, I believe it's 50 feet. We had secured or found one that was 40 feet, and we actually it was kind of too steep, so we ended up with the 50-foot gangway.
So I see there's one on the east. The gangways are going to be moved to the east. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Relocate them from their existing location to the east side of the pier, right?
It's a completely different gangway. So the gangways that are out there right now are fixed. They're small. They're narrow. This gangway is a 50 by 6 foot ADA compliant steel gangway. Adjacent to that is a conveyor system that fishermen would use for offloading their gear and catch.
I see. So I know one of the concerns of the fishermen is that float should not be extended any further into the harbor.
Correct.
They seem to be concerned about the gradient of the gangway, but it looks like you guys have they and I was not aware of that because I didn't look at the plans very carefully, that the new gangway would be set back quite a distance, and so you're maintaining your gradient or even improving it, I guess, over what exists. So
Right. Yeah, moving it over to the side gives us that longer ability. The gray shading shown here is the existing floats, and you can see we've proposed the floats in such a fashion that they do not extend out past where they are today.
great.
What about the 27 feet on the right side?
This, it doesn't extend further out towards the federal anchorage. Rather, this would be an extension. And we propose a quick release connection over here. It's something the harbor master would like to see. That way, in the case of a northeastern storm where we have driven currents this way, you would be able to break it off and nestle it in here.
And the reason for it?
Just more space. They're limited with the amount of small craft that can tie up. The big craft are pretty much limited to these few spaces over here. So it's really just a big grabbing for more space if possible.
So I don't know whether you're aware, but on that northeast side of the pier, this is where the lobstermen will haul their boats at high tide and then prop them against the existing seawall and be able to do maintenance. So if you have that extension there, how I guess they'd have to remove that to be able to do that during the winter when they do it?
No, not necessarily. This face of the wall, right, of the wharf right here is going to remain about the same. We've proposed a few additional mooring piles there so that they can still use this section. In the photograph, see, it is kind of hard to see, but this vessel is adjacent to the wharf, tucked into this part by the parking lot. So it's about right here, but it's not really enough space right now for more than one boat to do that. So this gives it a little bit more, like maybe two of those size vessels can fit here.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm looking at is the approach to that if the float is extended to the northeast, then how do they actually get in there?
Believe you just have to come around it. And if it is an issue with the users, then I think the harbor master would be happy to break that.
Yeah, so it can be removed so that they can during the winter, so that those guys can get a straight shot, because it's a tight spot and there's a big rock there, a big outcrop that they obviously can't land their boats against. There's just a narrow, maybe 10 feet or 15 feet of gravel between the northeast seawall and that outcrop, and they don't want to set their keels on that outcrop. So they need to come in there parallel to that seawall. They can't come in there and make a sharp turn and turn into that.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't aware that was their approach. They what was brought up to us was this rock right out here was the bigger obstruction. And
for their day-to-day stuff, when they're
For
loading and
day-to-day.
unloading, it certainly is. But when they are doing their annual maintenance, they do pull right up alongside that northeast wall. And these boats are 40 feet long, so it's not feasible that they come in from due north and then make a turn to get in between that outcrop and the seawall. They need to come straight in from the northwest.
Understood. Yeah, I had not heard that side yet. But I do think with the design, I mean, you could easily lose this float. You just lose your, additional 20 feet of dinghy space.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that they do during the non-boating season. This is when they're not fishing and nobody's got their boats swinging on their moorings out there. It's a winter, late fall, winter, and early spring thing that they do there to scrape their bottoms and presumably put anti-fouling paint on whatever repairs they need to do to their hull.
Understood. So with the current float configuration as is, you don't think they would be able to?
I don't know. I mean, I think consultation with them would be a useful, maybe even a valuable thing for you guys to do, to make sure that you don't build something that suddenly cuts them off from their ability to maintain their boats. And so if you're going to put pilings where you propose there, I assume that that's what we're looking at, where you're talking about. I'm looking at these two, a little bit to the left there. Show me where the pilings are, I guess.
Yes, they're shown in red.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for those guys.
Okay.
And I think I mean, this is outside of our jurisdiction, but Charlotte and I were just down there talking to these guys, and they're concerned about this. And I think and some of them probably aren't really, how should we say, they probably don't have the computers to look at these plans, and they may not even notice that there's suddenly going to be 3 new pilings in the way. And when they see that, they're going to come unglued, I bet.
I'll just add that, I wasn't, obviously present for the conversations, but I did clarify with the harbor master and the town manager that this design, definitely took a lot of conversation with the, commercial fishermen and other stakeholders. So I'm not sure what the conclusion of those conversations were, but they have had a lot of opportunities to look at these plans, but I think it might be worth the clarification of how we got to this proposed site plan. But both the harbor master and town manager's office did say that they had lots of conversations, to bring this to finalization. And Jimmy, I'm not sure if you were there for those, but it might be worth maybe going back and clarifying how we came to this design and if we do need to further modify it. They also were given copies of the site plan as well. We did encourage them to come to the meeting. I don't know if I see anybody on the call who we saw at the docks, but we did encourage them to come to the public meetings, and it'll also have to go to select board too.
I think I think those pilings would be an easy thing to miss with all that's going on in this diagram, right? I mean, it's like typical engineering drawings we get, there's a lot of stuff on it, and if they're not accustomed to looking at an engineering drawing, they could very well overlook the fact that there's suddenly going to be 3 new pilings out there, that they've got to somehow thread the needle to get back into their this only place that they can really maintain their boats with. So I would go so far as to say that these should be pointed out to them and ask them what they think, not just, hey, look at the plans, do you approve? What happens if we put these 3 pilings in? And I think that you might get some useful feedback from that.
Okay, yeah, I'll comment that I mean, Lori has the harbor master, Lori Gibbons, has been going back and forth with the community there for years, maybe 5 years or so. This plan came from let's utilize this space. Let's not encroach further out towards the anchorage. We're adding more space, more features for folks to use. So you know that maybe had been missed, but the design definitely was only with the intention to add more space and not to, you know, limit the uses of this wharf. It's really, you know, it's intended for folks to use it to make money.
Right.
So is the tan color, and is that all asphalt or is that just terra firma?
This tan color we're using to show the land subject to coastal storm flowage within the project area.
Okay, so what is the limit of the area that's being raised?
The limit is this cross hatch here, the slanted hatch.
And does it all have a perimeter wall around it?
There's I believe there's a small curb, or there's proposed that there would be a small like granite topped curb through there. Will kind of extend the aesthetic of the top of the concrete or the top of the wharf retaining wall.
Yeah. Those, by the way, those words don't quite work together. The granite and the aesthetic of the concrete. It's not my purview, but it couldn't be a worse thing to do to the harbor of Cohasset, to put a concrete wall on top of a 200-year-old granite wharf.
Could
And
face,
whoever proposed it should be ashamed of themselves.
they could face it with granite,
They could use granite. How about that?
could do that too.
So this cross section here shows the retaining wall with granite clad on the outside to match.
Okay.
And yeah, the idea that the retaining wall holds the structural fill, sends the you know the loading force inwards rather than out towards the wall.
Okay.
Full reconstruction of the wall.
So
Go ahead.
So going back to the plan where you said there would be a small granite curb, the intent is that there is still circulation between the parking lot and the adjacent property, is that correct?
By circulation.
Like people can walk from the park to the parking lot and back and forth as they currently do.
Right.
Well, I mean, is that really the case? Because you're 3 feet higher. So what happens when you get to, I mean, how much higher are you going to be when you get to that edge?
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying here. Yeah. So there needs to be a access.
Step.
There needs to be a step down or 2 steps down.
Well, it can't be steps. It has to be handicap accessible. I mean, even the lobstermen take their dogs and play on the park here, and vice versa. People come from the park and they walk out to the wharf. So, I mean, there needs to be some accessibility.
Okay. Understood. I mean, if you had a long step, then, you know, this maybe came out several feet and you had tiers down and I mean, you're saying handicap accessible as well. So we need to incorporate a smooth patch up.
Yeah, I mean, I assume since this is a town project, that eventually it's not just the fisherman's wharf, which would become improved for resiliency. The community boat club would be the same, and the rowing center would be the same. It would carry all the way down. But in the interim, if it's going to be done piecemeal, then I mean, it shouldn't. There shouldn't be. Well, a couple of things. One, there shouldn't be stormwater, which the way this is drawn right now, you're dumping a bunch of stormwater on the park land. Now, again, how the parcels work out, I don't know, Charlotte. So I don't know if the water which comes off the crown of this road going on to the park is an issue or not. I mean, it's going to be an issue just from the fact that the park's going to be soaking wet after rain, but if it's the same parcel, I guess they don't have that.
Yeah, I'll just note that, you know, since we are altering over 5,000 square feet here, we are going to need a stormwater permit, which I mentioned to Jimmy before the meeting. So, you know, it's a town project, so it'll be file exempt, but I think we need to see the drainage report calculations and subcatchment areas, you know, just to confirm we're not, you know, exacerbating the current conditions with this design.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then Charlotte, I understand that yesterday, a letter came in from
Yes.
fisheries, and so that's been less than 24 hours or just over 24 hours. We haven't had a chance to review that, so we definitely need to take a look at that before any decisions made.
Yeah, there's also a good handful of comments and recommendations from various departments in the ENF review. So I would encourage commissioners to check that out in addition to the DMF letter. I have to say I do agree with a good portion of them, but we'll defer obviously to the commission. And then I had some comments as well, but you know, again, we wanted to bring this first to the commission and get everyone's feedback and then address everything at once. And then just another note, you know, I mentioned to Jimmy as well that the salt marsh delineation, you know, since this project is, you know, has been years in the making, the salt marsh delineation has expired, so we would need it to be reflagged and resurveyed.
And commissioners, you know, this is the third project on the harbor in a few years. I believe every project's required cofferdams to minimize some of the issues. Of course, we ran into, I think at the boat ramp, they ran into ledge, so they had to modify that, but I think it's worth considering what's really necessary to.
Yeah, they ran sheet piles there.
Okay. Well, we need to consider that carefully.
Yeah, this is a lot less, looks like it's going to be a lot less intrusive. So since so much of the work is just on top of what exists.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me, Mr. Hill, if I'm wrong, but it looks like really the majority of your disturbance at the bottom would be to move these rocks or lower the elevation of that what might be an outcrop and drive some piles. So it's nowhere near the scale of disrupting substrate that the boat ramp was. So maybe, you know.
Yeah, maybe it's not.
Maybe
What happens if the piles hit refusal?
We propose rock socketed rocks, I mean piles, so there would be, it's kind of the point, right, to drive into the refusal.
Yeah, but what happens if you hit bedrock?
You
And
drive
that might only be 2 feet down. You've got a big outcrop fairly near to your piles. I mean, you can't assume that you're driving into sediment here. Can't assume you've got 10 feet of sediment there. You guys haven't done any cone penetration tests or any. You can't really do pits here. You'd almost have to do CPT to know what you're going to drive those piles into.
Yes, we did do rock cores and standard
Yeah.
penetration test. Yes.
Okay.
I actually, yeah, sorry, I didn't realize my screen was no longer presenting, but I did pull up our let's see, what do we have here? Our rock core to -7 feet mean low water.
Okay. So this is auger coring, is that, or augering down, or what? How did you drive some the name escapes me. Split
The
spoon-
5-inch
you
rock
did
cores.
split spoon sampling through sediment and then switch to diamond drilling to get core, or what?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Roller bit, 5-inch rock coring was performed.
Okay.
Yeah, 2020. Let's see, what else do we have? And then on the wharf itself, there was some test boring done as well. And that determined that underneath the asphalt poorly graded sand, there was some like broken up pieces of granite that are the
Can you
structure.
comment about the wisdom of sealing the seams between this gravity stone wall and cutting it off from natural drainage of groundwater through here? Don't we have an issue here with groundwater damming behind these walls that have had shotcrete, plugging them up so that you've got hydrostatic pressure at low tide on these walls?
I know we had
All of these have been grouted. It just seemed like a really bad idea to me.
We did have an inspection done of the current condition of the wharf. It was determined to be in fair condition. So the structural engineers designed this with that in mind.
So you don't think that damming of groundwater behind all of that grouted stonework at low tide, that hydrostatic pressure is not an issue?
Yeah, I can, get into that with the structural engineers, and I guess the possibility exists for that.
It just seemed like a bad idea to me. You're damming up groundwater behind these walls and by sealing them. It didn't add any structural integrity to them.
It only lasts a year or two, Tom, and then it pushes out, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's probably true, huh? Yeah, what a waste of money.
Yeah. Any other questions from commissioners? Any comments from the public? So there's a couple things I think we want to look that we're asking you to look at, looking at the piles. Possibly talk to some actual lobstermen and how they would approach this. The connection to adjacent properties, the stormwater permit, and then at the same time, the commission's going to spend some time looking at replies that have just come in from Marine Fisheries and from, who'd the other one come from, Charlotte? DEP?
DEP gave some general comments, and then the ENF letter has a lot of comments that were addressed during the review or recommended during the
Okay.
review. So
All right.
I have one question, if I could just refer to the letter that we got
Yep.
from the Division of Marine Fisheries. It says, and I'm looking at the letter now, that the town of Cohasset proposes to increase the grade of the existing stone wharf 3 feet to 16 plus feet at mean low water mark through the addition of approximately 3 feet of fill. My question is, what is that fill? What will that be?
Structural fill would be brought in. I think I have a section drawn of that exactly. Compacted structural fill, rock obstructions could be broken up, but we decided not to go with that option. Yep, so just some compacted structural.
So what does that mean, structural fill, like specifically, like concrete or?
I think we'd use like, yeah, right, concrete or some sand rock.
Probably, yeah, it's probably gonna be a graded crushed stone.
For
Thank
stone.
you.
Okay.
So all of these are elevations or reference to NAVD 88, is that correct? I just,
Joe, mean low water on the plans.
it's mean low water. I see.
Mean low water.
It seems to me that the FEMA maps are referenced to NAVD 88. And I think that the velocity zone there is at 15 feet. So something doesn't quite add up here.
The conversions are shown along for, your 15 feet.
Oh, yeah.
NAV
Right,
is
okay.
is almost 20 feet mean low
Yeah.
water.
Okay, so if these other elevations that you've got on your map are referenced to mean low water, then this doesn't make a lot of sense. Because
We're just
you're going to be at lower elevation than the velocity zone.
Well, there's not much higher than you can build. You can't build a 20-foot tall structure out there and have the gangways still work.
Well, if you again, you're using two datum here. One's mean low water, one's NAVD 88, and they need to be consistent here, I would think. We're concerned about this being above the velocity zone, right? And at 16 feet, that would be elevation. If the elevation would be what, another 5 feet higher relative to mean. Essentially, if you subtract 5 feet from all those 16s and 16.5s, you're down at 11.5. So you're lower than the elevation of the VE zone.
It's only, there's only a certain extent that you could build to, right, before.
I mean, you want to be at 16 feet NAVD 88, right? You want to be a foot or so above the velocity zone, but you're relating these to mean low water, which is lower in elevation than NAV 88. NAV 88 is approximately, it's within half a foot of sea level. Mean low water is below sea level.
Design of the project, we're more looking at the Stillwater elevation, right, for flooding events, right? As storm events where you're in the velocity zone of 20 feet. We designed to be able to survive, right? But it's not going to be an operable facility during those conditions. So the AE zone behind at 15 feet mean low water, which is 11 feet NAVD 88,
Yeah.
that gets us our 1 foot elevation above
Okay.
the AE zone.
Yeah, but part of your pier is in the VE zone, so you're not trying to. This somehow comes back to what the state requires, right, to meet the 2050 standard. And I haven't read that, so I don't know whether they reference everything to NAVD 88 or to mean low water.
Provide datums, but they do reference it to NAVD 88.
Okay, So it seems unusual that you're trying to be consistent with the state standard, but your datum, you're not using the datum that the state is using.
In design, when we go to chapter 91 waterways, they require us to do everything for a license in mean low water.
Okay, right, okay. So it's at least, I was assuming that we were talking about raising that thing to 16.5 feet NAVD 88, but we're not.
No, it would be about 11 feet.
Yeah.
88, yes.
Okay.
So the existing contours are being shown from mean low water?
Correct.
The ones below sea level are, but
No,
about
the ones on the
Ones on the
on the
land would
wharf
be-
are also.
yeah. That's not right.
Right.
You can't do that.
Sad, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Well, your terrestrial elevation should be referenced to WGS 84 or North American datum of what I can't remember the name of the terrestrial datum that all elevations are referenced to. These days it is NAVD 88, but historically they haven't been that way. So
Okay, so you're saying
no, we've got it's a little confusing to see two different datums here on the same map.
think what the idea is that FEMA zones are talked about, spoken in NAVD 88 terms. So we provided both, the mean low water, which is the plan reference shown in the datum chart to the bottom left, so that you can see that relationship between mean low water and NAVD 88 when we're talking about the flood zones, so that we can talk about our design.
Yeah.
It seems that my concern would be that where your fill has a note that it meets up with the existing 16, I'd be concerned that that's not a terrestrial 16, and because there's a lot more than 3 feet of change over that wharf. So I think what's happening is you're down at the bottom of the wharf using the mean low water, and then you're coming up to a terrestrial, and I don't think it's going to meet at that point.
Our survey shown, and there's the gray topo points in the back. Those are all in reference to mean low water. So that is in the 16-foot mean low water contour. I can call that out in another plan.
And the front edge of the wharf is at what? At that
So
existing?
right now it's about 13 feet.
There's a lot more than 3 feet of fall over that wharf. Up to that top, I would think.
From the top of the wharf, 13 feet down. I mean, I haven't stood down there myself, but looking at the photos, I would think that that's close to mean low water.
No, I'm not saying that that's incorrect. What I'm saying is that if you stand at the end of the wharf and turn around, it seems like it's a lot more than 3 feet by time you hit the road up above. I mean, it's got to be close to 5 or 6 feet. To where, because right where it says existing 16, there's a road that runs up there.
Right, a little further up the hill. Yeah, we're kind of going into, halfway through the parking area with that contour. So it is a little further up the hill.
Isn't the road right where that call out was? Isn't it right where that A is? Isn't that the road right there?
These dash lines are those are the buffer zones.
No, but see, you see a contour cut the other direction right there. See where it says
Right.
existing concrete path? Isn't that is that not the road or no?
Sure, right, it's right, a little bit to the outside of this photograph here, so I think from that 16-foot contour, it looks like it's going through here.
Okay.
So the bottom of that wharf, the seaward side of that wharf, at least where the asphalt stops and it looks like there's concrete after that, is about 8.5 feet above sea level.
Existing on the
Yeah, a little bit farther back from that, maybe, yeah, right in there. That's about 8.5 feet is its elevation.
Well, then that would make sense, Tom. If you add 3 to it, you're at 11.
Yeah, that's right. And just, yeah, I know this is all driven by regulatory nonsense, but it can be confusing here. We're looking at elevations that are referenced to one datum for topography and another datum for, in some cases, for the mean low water, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just the way our world works, I guess.
it found it's just easier to show both in scenarios where there can be, questions and scrutiny like this. That's just, maybe sometimes it aids the conversation. It appears here it didn't. I should have just left NAVD 88 off the plan.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you didn't, because I was under the assumption that we were talking about NAVD 88 and envisioned this at 16 and a half feet. And so therefore it was about 1.5 feet above the VE zone. In fact, it's underwater in a VE situation, quite underwater. It's like 4 or 5 feet underwater.
It is that, yeah, correct. And it is today, this is to alleviate, right? And that 100-year storm probability is out there.
1%,
Right.
Annually.
1% annually, right? And that doesn't even take into account, I don't know whether you're aware of it, Mr. Hill, but we just have had Woods Hole Group do they're not quite complete, but they've done an analysis of our vulnerability to storm surge, and it's not a pretty picture for our harbor.
Oh, it's not. I attended the FRM training. I'm not sure if you're talking about the same thing. But yes, of course, I looked at the models for this site for all of my sites. It looks catastrophic when you see
Really
the.
does. And that really doesn't even take into account, well, the model does take into account, but in general, we're looking at current conditions. 2050 is going to be a completely different story. So it's good to hear that you have left some ability to put additional courses of stone or raise the elevation yet again as necessary. And we all know it's going to be necessary.
Right.
Some people don't believe it, but I think most of us here in the commission do. Okay, well, okay, I'm just happy that it all sounds very arcane, but I was working under, I really hadn't noticed that all of this was referenced to mean low water. So now we know.
Okay, so we all have a little bit of homework to do. I'd like to continue this hearing for NOI 23-15 until June 22nd. Is that okay with you, Jimmy?
Believe so.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. June
great.
22nd.
June 22nd it is. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, our next hearing this evening is NOI 23-13 and Stormwater Permit 23-07 at 83 Spring Street. This was continued from May the 11th. This is the Juan property.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'd like to compliment everyone on being so civil last hearing. I thought it was a nice discussion. I'd like to start off this evening just by reading from Cohasset Wetland Regulations, Section 27A1, the inner buffer zone. Inner buffer zones consist of not less than 50 feet, serve a number of important functions in relation to protection of resource areas. These include providing a protective buffer between human activity and development and resource areas, providing an area to absorb, capture, or dissipate eroded materials or pollutants coming from sources further upland, and thus preventing or mitigating their impact on the resource area. Providing flood and storm damage mitigation. Stormwater control via water absorption capabilities of and protective barriers provided by trees and other vegetation, acting as a groundwater recharge area. And a protection area for water quality, providing wildlife habitat areas, travel corridors, and protection zones, providing aesthetic value and providing recreational value. The concern regarding activity within the buffer zone is the ultimate impact on the adjacent resource area during construction and subsequent use of the project. There was one other thing I wanted to see, but I can't find it right now. Sorry. Oh, yeah. If the buffer zone is already disturbed, the Conservation Commission may require that it be revegetated with indigenous vegetative species of habitat value. Okay. Had my say. Jeff, take it
All right.
away.
Thank you, Chris. So, yeah, I as well appreciate the discussion we had in the meeting 2 weeks ago. Based on that, we did formally submit a revised plan where we moved the structure out of the 50-foot buffer. So that plan is dated May 18th, and I will share it. So this is the plan that we submitted following the last meeting. We are now proposing the house entirely outside of the 50-foot buffer, which is that red line. We're at 63.9 feet from the wetland, as opposed to the existing house that's 25.3. One of the big concerns we had was whether we'd have any issue with ledge when extending the utilities from the existing house back to the new location. That appears to not be an issue. We did 2 test bits, one located right here and the other here. So on either side of the utilities, and did not encounter any ledge. So that was great news. We also excavated a 3rd test bit in the back right corner of the house where the grade comes up to see if we were going to have any issues with ledge in that corner. We got down deeper than the slab elevation without hitting any ledge. So there really should be minimal, if any, ledge removal for this project. So that was good news. The other thing we talked about was the removal of this 30-inch tree. We had a driveway configured in a way that would have to be removed. We've adjusted that driveway, and now we're preserving it. With the alternative, with keeping the existing footprint, we thought that tree needed to go because of the proximity to the house, but we're comfortable with it in that location. And then lastly, we added additional trees in this area where the existing home is being removed. So that home and deck are being removed, an outbuilding and an outhouse. In the location of those structures, we're proposing now 3 eastern white pines and a total of 7 white oaks. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, where we feel this plan is superior, having the house outside of that 50-foot buffer zone. And we've kind of gone back and forth on this over a few meetings, and we're hoping we can move forward with it this evening. Thank you.
Charlotte, before we get into discussion, is there an open permit on this?
Yes,
So
there is a superseding order of conditions, SE 13-12324. And DEP had advised that the applicant is advised to request a certificate of compliance for this order before any work commences under the new NOI. So if the commission were to issue an order of conditions tonight, I would recommend we put that as a condition. And that, from what I've, from what we've seen, they're really close to closing it, but just so that we can close that one out officially before this new one starts.
I'm sorry. So you're saying it should be closed out before new orders? Okay.
Before any work commences under the new NOI. So that's what DEP had advised, and I would recommend we make that a condition for approval.
Okay. Okay. Jeff, could I ask you to zoom in a little bit on the area of the plan that we're currently looking at?
Sure.
Okay. So I was just verifying, but white pine don't really like wet soils. So I'm gonna recommend we use a different evergreen. I mean, those are going to be very wet soils. They need well-drained soils. So
Okay. I'm open to that. They are 2-3 feet higher in elevation than the wetland. You still think
yeah,
they should
but
be replaced?
their roots won't be.
Okay. Okay. You're the expert on that. We can certainly switch them out.
All right. I also besides for trees, I think it would be wise for the area of disturbance where obviously a big portion of the existing structure sits where the new driveway will be, but the area that's not, it should receive some sort of mitigation planting in that area. So.
Okay. In addition to the trees, like you think like a
Yes.
seed mix.
Yeah,
and
it
shrubs.
needs a shrub layer, ground cover layer, something like that to really stabilize everything that's been disturbed over time.
Okay, so in this area where the existing house is being removed, but beyond the limit of the driveway, we can
Correct.
enhance that area further with a seed
Yeah,
mix.
basically any area of disturbance,
Any
and
area
so-
concerns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the idea, Jeff, that all the contours that come across on the left side of the house, they just run into the foundation? Is that the idea?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, you have an existing 13 contour running right in front of the garage.
Yep.
And we have a garage slab at elevation 13.
Yep.
And then the foundation wall will extend up at a variable height, or I guess it won't be variable, but there won't be any fill brought around it. It's just matching existing grade.
Right. What about material that's taken out?
It'll be put on in a dump truck and hauled away.
Okay. All right. Any further comments or questions by commissioners?
I just say that this has been a long and sometimes painful deliberation. And I just want to commend you guys for, Mr. Wan and Mr. Hassett for coming up with a solution that, at least in my mind, satisfies virtually every one of my concerns, at least.
Yes,
And
thank you.
I also very appreciate all the commissioners being patient with us. And I was saying with Jeff and Greg after our last meeting that I have never seen a meeting so productive, cordial, and supportive and helpful than what I have seen last time that we had a discussion.
That's
And
because I wasn't here.
I think if you were here, I think you would have liked it very, very much.
I liked watching it on video. I certainly did.
But you know, actually, we were, although you were not there, we were considering your ideas, and your
I
ideas
appreciate that.
eventually prevailed. So
What would Chris do? That's what we kept saying. Let's
So you were present in spirit, Chris.
I was. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it very much. Okay. Well, any other comments, questions?
Yeah, just say, you know, for any additional plantings beyond the mitigation, just keep in mind that if you're in the 50, you know, that is still an alteration. So if you want to plant more, run it by Charlotte, make sure it's from the you know, the native plantings list. But again, I reiterate the comments from you know, from Tom, and we appreciate your giving us those options and willingness to kind of come to a good compromise. I think that this went well. So good luck.
Yes, well done. and Best of luck.
Now, Mr. Wan, you need to buy a good bug zapper since you're living so close to the wetland.
I shall.
Okay, well then, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for NOI 23-13 at 83 Spring Street, with the conditions that no work will begin before a COC is issued for the original permit, that a mitigation planting plan is submitted for areas of disturbance, and any additional work, including future plantings, need to be considered carefully and approved by Charlotte if they are in any of the resource areas, which is most of the site. So, do I have a second?
Second.
Having a
Sorry, did you want to switch out the white pines, or did you want to
Yeah,
just?
that's part of the mitigation plan.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Having a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions for NOI 23-13. We'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 4-0. We also need to, I make a motion to issue a variance for work within the buffer zone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion, a second to issue a variance for work as shown on this plan for work within the buffer zone. We'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland. That vote passes 4-0. And finally, I make a motion to issue a stormwater permit 23-07 for 83 Spring Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second. Take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
John Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 400. Thank you very much, Mr. Wan.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Jeff. Okay, we seem to have one certificate of compliance for this evening. The other two have been continued. We have NOI 19-15 and stormwater permit 19-18 for 187 Atlantic Avenue. Take it away, Charlotte.
Yes, and we do have the, I believe now the previous owners of, but the current permit holders. We have Robin Lynn Schwant on the call. So just following up from our last conversation about this COC, the commission had expressed some concerns about the drainage pipe that was going into the wetland. It seems to be a sump pump pipe, and there's actually two that the engineer has now located on the as-built, and I can pull that up momentarily. So we just wanted clarification about the history of this pipe, if it was already existing on the site, why it was installed in this location, and if potentially possible to relocate it. And then the other concern was removing some hydrangeas out of this landscaped area in front of the entrance, and those have since been removed. And then just to clarify with the commission too, we're in the process of recording the long-term operation and maintenance plan for the stormwater management systems for this property. That will be done prior to the issuance of a stormwater permit COC, but they are prepared to take care of that. And I guess I can pass over to either the commission or the Schwants to see if they have anything else to add, but I believe those were our concerns from the last meeting. Did anybody have any questions about this? They've been located on the as-built.
Okay, so what's the status of the sump pump discharge?
So there's two coming from the front of the house. One is here just in front of the wetland, and then the other one is right here a little bit closer. And I believe they're sump pump pipes that are, discharging the groundwater. And this was a 2019 permit. It was to raise and rebuild an existing home. So I'm not sure if those were there originally or if they were relocated, but they weren't on the original plan. So I think we just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Maybe the Schwans can let us know about those.
Hi, Robin
Mary,
Lincoln.
Hi, Charlotte, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, it's Rob Schwant. So our contractor may be joining us shortly. And he can speak to this more specifically than I can, but when this house was under construction, very early on, probably when the concrete had been formed for the basement, water was identified, groundwater was identified. The contractor can speak to a meeting with with Jeff, the then serving conservation agent, Jeff Summers, regarding the situation and the viability of discharging those two pipes. One is there's a primary sump there that does run periodically. The second pipe, the one I guess that'd be to the north, closer to the ocean, is really a backup in the case of emergency, and really does not run. But in any event, our contractor, who I think you've talked to directly, Charlotte, and we've reviewed with the situation, he did talk with Jeff Summers about the viability of discharging to the locations where they are shown on the plan, and got confirmation that was acceptable.
And I just promoted Rob Kurotoa. Is Brian Sullivan also here for this? Or is he,
Brendan is not,
oh, sorry, Brian Sullivan, sorry.
Brendan, yeah, Brendan's not out on vacation, I guess.
Okay, yeah, sorry, there was a Brian Sullivan in the audience. I'm not sure if they were here for this, but yeah, I just promoted Rob. Rob, do you have anything else to add about this?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little late.
No worries.
Okay, yeah, so I was out there on site a while back with Jeff, the previous commissioner, and he was aware of that pipe. And I met him out there initially because a few of the trees in the wetlands had blown over due to high winds, and that's what initiated the that meeting. But the pipe that we had put in was just for the overflow for the sub pump in the basement. Hello?
Yep.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, we heard you.
What's the, do you have oil heat in this house? This, the sumps in proximity to like an oil tank? I mean,
Nope, it's all natural gas. And the pumps only work seasonal. So they're not on a continuous basis at all.
Sorry, Rob, just to clarify, by seasonal, did you mean pretty much between like winter and spring when we get?
Yep.
You know, okay.
Yep, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's mainly in the spring, and if I remember correctly too, that's when I met Jeff out there. It was probably like in March or April. And like I said, we met there originally just to discuss the trees, but then at that point too, with the landscaper, we started discussing all the plantings too on the plan.
Charlie, what did you say was required? Some kind of maintenance?
Oh,
manual?
so this is it's a 2019 NOI and stormwater permit.
Yep.
So in some of our previous conversations, the driveway and the stormwater systems would need to be perpetually maintained, just by, the current owner, future owners. So as part of our regulations, we require for that long-term operation and maintenance plan to be recorded with the registry prior to the issuance of a stormwater permit COC. So the Schwans and the new homeowners are aware of that, and we'll take care of it. But we, it had been updated to include pervious pavement maintenance, and already had the stormwater system maintenance details in there. So we would just need that recorded, but we could do it, as a condition for approval if the commission agrees with that. But that will be done as part of the, process.
Can we add to that should there be any spillage in the area of the sumps that they need to be immediately disconnected?
Would that be for the stormwater COC or would it be both?
Well, I think it would be for both.
Oh, do you mean add that to the long-term operation and maintenance plan perhaps, I guess, or?
Yes. That's
Yeah.
what I'm-
Yeah,
I mean, obviously the system is in, there is, a verbal record that Jeff approved it, but it's really probably the worst place you can dump that water, because if there's a contaminant, it ends up right in the wetland. So,
Okay.
Whether it's a laundry detergent or a can of paint or something like that, if,
Could I
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but just so you know, the sump pumps are contained, the lids are secured and tight. So nothing can get inside the tanks.
All right, well, then, something to the effect that is maintained would be important.
Yep.
Yeah, that way
Okay.
we have a little bit of surety that someone decides it's.
Yeah, typically like you're discharging, you know, it would be to a place where it would be allowed to infiltrate through the soil, not directly to a resource. And I don't know off the top of my head, but is there anything, best management practices or Charlotte, anything that would you know, point to something like
It's a good question for some pump stuff. I'm not exactly sure, at least for stormwater. You know, we try to create, at least for any, you know, overflow pipes for infiltration systems, they'll have some sort of splash pad or anything like that. And, you know, obviously the infiltration systems hold the majority of stormwater, where those outflow pipes are really just for emergencies, as well as the inspection port. But for sump pump pipes, I'm not exactly sure if that, you know, as it pertains to stormwater management. But I think, you know, if the commission wanted to see a general maintenance, you know, details included in that long-term O&M plan, if the Schwantz and Rob are agreeable to that, I think that's feasible, just to make sure that we're not dealing with any illicit discharges or anything like that on the site, which is a part of stormwater compliance. But at least when engineers provide a stormwater permit COC request, they are confirming that there are no illicit discharges on the site. But at the time, that was before we knew about these pumps or pipes.
I don't understand, Mr. Curto, you made a comment about the sump pumps being in some sort of containment area.
Yeah, yep. So it, the bucket itself is underneath the concrete slab, and then there is a lid that we attach, and that lid locks in, and there is no perforated holes. It's its own contained self system. So all it really is a seasonal pump that is just the groundwater. It's just recycling that.
So for example, if there were a washer in that area and it overflowed, it couldn't reach the
Nope.
Is that right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and also too, the laundry is on the second floor and the basement is unfinished.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, there would be no way.
What else is in the basement? Is there a workshop or anything there? Or?
No, it's all unfinished. Just some utilities, the air handler. But again, that's all natural gas, so there's no products down there.
So yeah, so there's unlikely that you're going to spill anybody's going to spill any liquids there that are going to
exactly. Yep, exactly.
Go to the sump pump. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Chris McIntyre in that ordinarily we'd really want to see some sort of infiltration here instead of dumping directly into the wetland. But I don't know whether it's too late to do that or not.
Well, the whole site's the wetland.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was kind of Jeff's acknowledgement at the time.
Well, at least it'd be going into the subsurface rather than entering any surface waters, which would have a more immediate impact on vegetation and wildlife.
It is very minimum if that matters at all.
what is the flow?
The water that pumps out, it's very minimum, and it's like I said, it's just very seasonal, just in the spring.
What would you estimate the if you were to throw a number at it?
Maybe during the spring, maybe a gallon and a half, like maybe every 8 hours or so. It's not that much.
So at the end of the pipes, is there any sign that the flow has cut a channel of any sort?
No, it's actually Charlotte, I think you saw it too. And
Yeah, Charlotte had
what the
pictures.
what the landscaper did too is he put some stones there, so to diffuse it a little bit.
Good.
So this,
So
this
that
is, yeah, this is one of the pipes. It
Yeah, that
was-
one
it
doesn't
was-
even, yeah, that's just the backup. That one, no water comes out of that one.
Oh,
So the one that's closest to the driveway is the one you saw, Charlotte.
Yeah, this is the one closest to the driveway where I did see water discharging, I would say maybe every 10, 15 minutes when I was there for an inspection. I didn't hear the other one. It was mostly coming from
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, we just did that as a backup just in case, but like I said, the landscaper did put some good sized stones right at the mouth of the pipe. So it diffuses it a little bit. And he also did do some crushed stone underneath it also.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see it, but maybe it was just, because it was underneath the pipe and then just the mulch area.
Exactly. Yeah, and then, again, that was done, geez, at this point now, that could be over 2 years, 3 years.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Any other comments or concerns? Anything from your end, Charlotte?
Just if, for ongoing conditions, I would recommend for the order of conditions, the same, standard, no herbicides, pesticides, and all plantings must survive 3 full growing seasons. So that's condition 40 and 41. And then for the stormwater permit COC, I don't know if it necessarily has to be a condition, but it could just be either a written condition or a verbal one that just whoever needs to record the long-term O&M plan, that just be done before the stormwater permit COC is issued. And I don't know if you guys wanted to add that maintenance detail about the pipes, or if you wanted to just leave it at that.
No, I think you should include, we should include a order of condition that the maintenance manual refers to the sump as having a tight lid that needs to be kept in place so that no foreign matter falls in.
Yeah, we can update that on the long-term O&M plan.
Because a lot of times, if you have a problem with some pump, someone takes the lid off, never goes back again.
Yep.
Can you go back to the plan for 1 minute, please?
Yep. The as-built?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you zoom out?
Yep.
Is a little more?
Zoom out more? Yep. Maybe, is that okay?
Yeah. So, Charlotte, I just want to point out that immediately adjacent to Atlantic Avenue is the area, I believe it was, Phil was added to that area.
Mhm.
Mr. Schwan, I don't know if you can comment on that.
Well, an attempt to get some vegetation and to remove, there were some low-lying areas that were holding seasonal stagnant water that was objectionable to our neighbors. So we did fill a couple low spots, and there was some thinly spread loam in an attempt to get some seed to germinate.
So, I mean, it's too late now, probably. The trees are gonna die in that area. It's more loam than you think. Trees can't withstand that. The objectionable standing water probably was another wetland. it probably shouldn't have been interfered with. I mean, I can't, Charlotte, I don't know if you ever.
Well,
were
I,
able
I
to
can,
look at
I can speak to that. I mean, in terms of the history of it, actually, there was no standing water on that property prior to the development of, I think it's 183, the Fernando property.
Right.
When they built their driveway and built a slope up to the house, all of the water on that part of that property came down the hill into that area that prior to construction of that house, there was never standing water.
Yeah, their driveway's right there, so there was a lot of runoff from the driveway down into that area.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe on
And-
some of the trees in there, the contractor did put some tree wells around those trees.
Yeah, we actually were alerted by a neighbor, and maybe incorrectly, but it was the standing water around one or two of those trees that was being objected to by the neighbor, claiming that in fact is what was killing a tree or trees.
Okay.
I'll just note too that, that at least from what it looks like, and anyone please correct me if you think differently, the area here where the Loman seed was installed and the fill was brought in, appears to be outside of the 100-foot buffer to the wetland, you know, between the Schwantz and the neighboring property. However, there is an isolated vegetated wetland that's across the street. Just for reference, 136 Atlantic Ave, where, you know, we had recently approved a project, is just over here that had an isolated vegetated wetland going up to Atlantic Ave. But, you know, as we know, that only has a 25-foot buffer. So if it was a 100-foot buffer, this area of disturbance probably would have been within jurisdiction. But at least from what I can see, it looks like that this area is in between wetlands jurisdiction for us. But if anyone thinks differently on the maps or anything, just let me know. But at least I've looked at it a few times and it appears to be outside of wetlands jurisdiction.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 19-50, I'm sorry, for order of conditions associated with NOI 1915 and stormwater permit 1918 with our standard conditions, as well as a condition that the operation maintenance plan shall reference the sump pump canister, that it shall always have a lid tightened down. Do I have a second?
Second,
Motion and second. We'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland, aye. That vote passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
At what
The other
time does,
two-
at what point does a wetland become a wetland?
Good question.
Very good question.
When the neighbor puts in a driveway and all the water settles in the hole next to him?
Yeah, you need to have the presence of hydric soil. So
How long does that take?
I don't know, a long time.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it? That's not true.
Well, it has the,
Probably a few hundred.
Really?
Yeah.
Couple
Oh.
fairy shrimp.
yeah, throw some fairy shrimp in there. It's a vernal pool, yeah.
Frogs.
Oh, it probably was a vernal pool too, by the way. All right, anything, oh, 48-hour issue? Charlotte, you have one?
I do. So so Sandy Beach, the order, you know, that we issued with the beach maintenance plan, DPW started doing some of the work, sweeping Atlantic Ave in the parking lot. I don't know if you guys drove by or saw anything today, but they were using an excavator to remove the linear sand feature between Atlantic Ave and the parking lot. I called legal counsel, and unfortunately, the way the beach maintenance plan is specified, that was intended. It is not a regulatory coastal dune. Even though it's the whole area is a barrier beach resource area system, that linear feature unfortunately is not a coastal dune under the regulatory stature. However, it definitely looked like one because there's vegetation that was growing all over it. So over, the beach maintenance plan explained that, over time sand accumulates in that area because there's granite posts and boulders in between the road and the parking lot, and sand accumulates with there over time. And they hadn't obviously touched that in well over 10 plus years. So that's why, we started to see the vegetation on top of it. But I will say council and I, as much as we hated to admit that that was the intent of the beach maintenance plan, it should have been considered that that area had vegetation on it. So they are going to probably let it accumulate again another 10, 15 something years, but I think we should reconsider that to maybe manage that area better and not destroy native vegetation to do it, to protect the paved areas. It's not a good site. And, some people had called me, they were very concerned and they wanted me to go over there, which I did. And I called legal counsel on the phone and we looked at the beach maintenance plan again. And, that was the intent of the plan. But yeah, it isn't a regulatory coastal dune. So that's the good thing, that they weren't destroying a resource area, at least a dune resource area. But we should have considered the vegetation on top of it. So they are going to remove that whole linear feature, and then they'll just allow it to accumulate again over time until they feel like they need to take it down.
Well, what's our recourse, or when do we review that plan again? Didn't coastal zone management or isn't one of their maintenance plan recommendations that their plan be reviewed every couple of years or something?
Yeah. So I mean, they're going to need moving forward, they need an active order of conditions to do any of this maintenance work. So unless the commission chooses to give them an extension of up to another 3 years, every 3 to 6 years, we're going to need a new order of conditions on the property. And every time maybe the commission sees that, we should be considering additional recommendations, which, Chris, Tom, Kathy, Chris, you guys also already did that and told them that it's in their best interest to look into alternatives, because burying the seaweed just doesn't sound like a feasible solution over time. But the protection or management of that linear feature, it might be worth exploring our jurisdiction, at least under another resource area, and seeing if we can protect that better. Because it's a shame. I mean, an excavator's plowing all this dune grass and beach plum off of that feature just to maintain the paved areas. And it's I don't know, it's very depressing to see that, but the maintenance plan is clear that that area over time would be removed for maintenance.
Yeah, it was painful to see.
Very painful. Yeah, I mean, at least to me, I thought the barrier beach system had a series of dunes, but under the regulatory definition, because that linear feature is on top of two paved surfaces, it doesn't have the function of a coastal dune, even though, it looks like one. The only plus side that I can see to this linear feature being removed is that feature was getting bigger and bigger. So it was preventing sand from blowing across the parking lot and across the Ave to the actual coastal dune. So at least the plus side, even though the vegetation was destroyed, I wish it had been relocated if possible. But the sand will now collect more on the coastal dune across the street. So that's the only plus that I tried to see. But as you saw, very depressing. But no calls yet. I will say this permit still is within the 10-day appeal period. So unless I get any appeal by tomorrow, it's work at your own risk. So we'll see if I get any calls tomorrow. That was it. Anybody else have any questions, concerns? No?
I think so.
You guys want me to run through my updates real quick?
Sure.
All right, I'll do the channel light last. So 34 Reservoir Road, that was an administrative stormwater permit. They started construction on the garage addition, and the erosion controls are all up. Inspected those. Golf club maintenance buildings, that was still actively ongoing. You know, they did all the ledge stuff. I think they're about to start pouring the foundations. They had reached out to me a few weeks ago about installing electric utilities. They're working with National Grid to do that. Sorry, and they're not within the buffer zone to any wetlands. But I told them if they are doing any tree trimming or cutting where that electrical line is going to be installed, they have to notify me in writing. But from what it sounds like, I don't think that's happening. And then the 3A sewer project, you guys may have seen it, but they had to repave the road because it was MassDOT was not satisfied with that. So before they filed for a COC for this, they had to repave the northern section of 3A. And then, at least on the Board of Health side, they still have to disconnect and completely, disassemble or do whatever they need to do to take out that old septic system. But the sewage is connected to 3A and the plaza. They just need to officially disconnect the other system. But we should see a COC request for that in the future. And then last but not least, the Coast Guard channel light. Luckily, I was able to nip this in the bud before anything happened, but the Coast Guard, they had recently gotten their state permits and they were about to come in this week and replace the channel light. And there is a large osprey nest on top of it with 3 babies. So the harbor master came and notified me. She showed me pictures and videos. And then I eventually got a hold of the contractor, who unfortunately was, of course, unaware of that. And he was unaware of the special condition in our order of conditions that we didn't want any work between May 1st and August 15th to, mitigate any disturbance to nesting habitat. So yeah, that was awkward, but at least we stopped it. And on top of that, the harbor master didn't want an 80-foot barge coming in right before Memorial Day. So she may not want the work done until November. At least I said nothing until after August 15th. So
You saved the day, Charlotte.
well, Lori technically helped me. I wouldn't have known because it's out in the middle of the water. I wouldn't have seen it.
Well.
They also have to record the order. So that was another reason why I reached out to the contractors and the engineers. And I was like, there's an issue with recording where, it's out in the middle of the harbor and nobody knows how to record it. And town council politely told me to politely tell them that that's not Cohasset's problem. It's the Coast Guard and DEP's problem because they wanted to tie it to a town property. And it's like, no, we're not doing that now. Figure out a way to record it and figure it out. Give me the proof and then you can do the work. So,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I'm glad she told me. She's out on the water and she lets me know when she sees anything, that doesn't look right. Yeah.
That's great.
I got eyes.
Yeah.
And then the other updates I finally finished my updates to the special conditions boilerplate. I'm just waiting on town council to give me some feedback first, and then I'll send it to you guys. And then maybe we can, if we have time next meeting, maybe we can approve it or at the following meeting. But yeah, just letting you guys know I finally finished everything. I just need,
Right.
some input on council. And then I didn't know if you guys wanted to set up any sort of training with our town council. Like, are there any topics or refreshers or anything that you guys think would be valuable to you? We've seen some complicated projects with replication, riverfront, coastal resource areas. I didn't know if anything if you guys wanted to just have an open meeting with another training, kind of like what we did, I think in like January last year or something. Is there anything, is there anything that you guys might, Kathy, I think you'd reached out to me about the land alteration bylaw previously. We can probably try to tie that in, but is there anything else, or would you guys want to set something up in the summer, fall, winter, maybe winter when it's dead? Well, not dead, but less crazy, or I can send out a poll or whatever.
Once we get after summer.
Okay.
When we go back to school.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it would be good to do.
Okay.
And
Yeah, it would be
maybe,
good.
I'd like to maybe look through some of the MAC material and just for some ideas for topics and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt has a lot of great resources too.
Right.
But Yeah, I think from a legal side, it would be good to get maybe some additional, at least for me, the riverfront comes to mind because there've been some complicated projects and soon to be complicated projects on the horizon. So that's where I'm kind of like, riverfront is a good one, at least in my brain. But yeah, I'll take any other suggestions from you guys. And then last but not least, a lot of people, including Chris McIntyre, have reached out to me about potentially doing, setting up some sort of internship. This is something I've wanted since day one, so I'm glad you guys agree. Unfortunately, it's too late to add it to fiscal year 24, so I'll be working with the town to try and set something up and have it be paid because I feel very strongly about paid internships. And I would love to set that up in the future. You know, Hingham, as you guys know, has an assistant, well, not right now, but they have an assistant agent. So if we had some sort of interim person helping out with, you know, site inspections, project reviews, you know, during the height, especially spring and summer seasons where, you know, we're all running around like crazy, it would be really helpful. We just need to frame it the right way to make sure, because there's a lot of bio students that are interested, but I do want to tell them that this job is obviously very heavy on the regulatory permitting side, you know, not necessarily the research side. So, but yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on how to set something up, I'm all ears. But yeah, I am working on it. I want to meet with town manager at some point this summer and figure it out.
Did we get any applicants?
So unofficially too. And then,
Why do you say unofficially?
well, because one reached out to Angela via email and wanted to know if there's any opportunities. And I told her I'd meet with her next week just to give her a run through. She can definitely help with any side projects unpaid, but you know,
I meant applicants for the commission.
Oh, to the commission? No. So that's another thing that, I'm sorry, it wasn't on the agenda, but unfortunately, there were some potential people that Angela actually had on the horizon, but Board of Health scooped them up. So we're a little bitter about that, but one was a doctor, to be fair. But if anybody, you know, I will say, if anybody comes across somebody, give them my work cell. Like, you know, I'm
Put
okay with that.
something in like the mailings, like the stroll or whatever.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I was gonna post something in there and I don't know what the process for that is, but maybe post something in the stroll. I'll follow up with Justin about posting something on social media. He was creating some sort of promotional video, which I hate personally because I'm in it, but it's fine. I'll do it. But you know, I think posting it on social media will be really helpful. The stroll print would be helpful. But yeah, if you guys know of anybody, just give them my work cell at this point. You know, I'll talk to anybody.
So typically they add people to commissions right around now, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And I guess Eric got an extension.
Yep. Well,
And
I think he has to apply. I need to double check with him. And Kathy, I think if you're interested, of course, I think you
Haven't
need
done
to
that yet.
apply for your.
Yeah,
cert.
I'm aware.
Okay. Yeah,
But-
so we
but
they
there's a
haven't-
deadline. Is there there's a deadline for that, isn't
June
there?
30th. Yeah, I'll make sure Eric
Okay.
I'll make sure Eric reapplies for June 30th. And he just has to specify in the form for one additional year.
Can the select board, like, can they do something special if we find people not in June?
I think so. I think we tried to do that last year, but we couldn't find anybody. So they'll put, so for the applications that they receive for all the boards, they will put those on respective meetings, I think after June 30th. So if I wanted to tell them to hold off on Concom until maybe like August or something, you know, we could try our best to pull anybody to submit something, but I don't think that's a hard deadline to submit your application. I mean, that's officially the deadline, but I think last year we did try to hold out to see if anybody else applied.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, give him my cell phone number if you guys find anybody. It is yeah. I've tried emailing certain people. I didn't realize some other people were previously on Concom, but I did try emailing a lot of people from let's see, CCT trustees, if there's anybody who's a Cohasset resident, Wild Cohasset, you know, a few other groups. I can try to reach out to CSCR to see if Jack Buckley knows anybody. Yeah, I'm running out of ideas. I was getting close to emailing developers, but I know that would be a conflict of interest for certain projects. So
Yeah, you don't want to
Well-
seem desperate. You know, it's like,
unfortunately, I don't know if I've already created that.
Maybe we could just rewrite the bylaws so that the commission is like 2 people. So then a quorum would be 1.
I actually did look at that to see if we could have a smaller commission. There's something, council, I think, has to explain to me a little bit more, but there's something about conservation commissions being 7 members, and I don't know, I don't know where that comes from, but
I know other towns that only have like 5.
interesting. Maybe we have to revise something on our end, because we are a commission of, maybe we have to get approval from select board to make it a smaller board or something, but I don't know. I thought that someone told me that there's something legally about Concom's being 7 members, at least in terms of, you don't have to have 7 active members, but the board itself has to be a 7-member board. With a
Right, but if
quorum.
you have a 7-member board, that means you have to have a quorum of 4 to have a meeting.
Yeah, so that's the regulation, I think. I don't think you obviously
Yeah.
you don't have 7 members right now, but you have to have a quorum of 4 for conservation commissions.
Yeah, probably it.
But yeah, I'm gonna follow up with Justin. Thank you for the reminder about the promotional video. We'll post that all over social media, so my face will be all over the place.
Great.
And I'll look into the stroll a little bit more. I'm gonna see if I can get a contact from them and give them a call and see if I can post something. But yeah, anybody who's passionate about the environment at this point, I mean, that's really what I'm looking for, you know, somebody who's a passionate individual who likes to stay up late.
That wouldn't be somebody who reads the stroll.
Eric reads the stroll and he's on our board.
There's something posting, you can post to the library or something, I don't know.
I might go to the
Good
schools
idea.
too. I need to, like, I don't know how the school network works, and quite frankly, I don't know if I want to, but I may or may not reach out to schools and the principal and see if they can post something. And maybe any enthusiastic parents or somebody might be interested, but yeah, if you guys are okay with that, I can definitely reach out further to CSCR, to the schools, to the library, maybe, posting stuff,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Charlotte, I may have somebody for you, or at least a suggestion for the,
Yay.
as an assistant.
Oh, okay.
to you. I'll just double check his
Okay.
info and. I'll get
Yeah,
on that
I'm happy to
tomorrow.
talk to
Yes,
him. Yeah, I don't have anything solid right now, but hopefully by, I know it's unfortunate in the future, but 2025, hopefully we'd have something maybe officially set up. But in the interim, if anybody wants to work with me on a volunteer basis, you know,
Yeah.
I'm of course open to that. So,
I'll get that to you tomorrow.
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, that's it for me.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Hey,
Thanks, everyone.
thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
you. Good
Have a good
night.
Memorial Day.
Too.
You too.
Thank you,
Bye.
Charlotte.
Bye-bye.